This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchioni.
Hey, you have a wonderful idea for a topic for us today based on the fact that it was very recently Halloween.
Yes. So I would love to take credit for it, but Halloween came and I just thought about it. I saw all the little kitties running around with their little cute stuff on. And Mom, and I remember it's been a while since I needed to do that. So, but since I didn't have to do it, I could see it in another light, a little bit differently. And I thought about how we wear masks every day. Doesn't have to be Halloween,
Correct.
Not scary stuff.
Halloween, we dress up in caricature masks.
Yes. And there's probably something even in the choice of the masks that we wear for Halloween. But I thought about the masks that we wear every day. And I thought about me, obviously, because I'll tell you what, I start with me because I'm really not interested in trying to talk about other people because I don't know them, people do what they do because of the reasons that they do it. I only know me. So, that's quite enough, actually.
And very wholesome, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, to realize, I got my own stuff that I have to dig through before I start pointing fingers at other people.
I just, that's another show, but it's exhausting. It's really, but anyway, so I always start with me because I think about how I'm living my life. And I wondered what masks I wear. I don't think it's a wrong thing to wear a mask as long as you know that you're wearing it for whatever reason, you're doing it, I think. So
okay.
it's, you know what I mean? So I guess the question is, or not even the question, I just think if you wear certain masks, sometimes you have to in certain situations to be okay.
Yeah.
I think about the many years, and actually my husband and I were talking about our years in ministry in the traditional church. And since he's back there doing a little stint, we talk about it even more. And he talks about the mask that I wore. And I kind of get a little bit tickled about it because I'm thinking, I did what I had to do. Is that okay? Well, yeah, it's okay. People say that you shouldn't wear a mask. You be yourself all the time. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to shape things and do stuff. So is that good?
Well,
is that enough to go on?
Yeah. And the question that I have is the term mask implies that we're hiding something while showing something else to the world. And there are also ways that we can display a particular persona. So when I'm engaging with somebody as a homeowner, that can come off differently than when I'm engaging with them as their teacher. And it's not because I'm necessarily a different person. It's because the topics that we're talking about and the perspective that I'm offering up are different. So in your mind, what's the difference there?
To me, you have sometimes, I don't want to say all the time you have to do it, but there are sometimes you need to adjust to the circumstance in order for things to flow smoothly. I suspect as we go on, we'll get more detailed, but.
Well, yeah. And for me, that's a huge piece of it, because we all show different aspects of ourselves at different times. So I can talk about my experiences and my story differently with my close family than I necessarily will with my congregation or my coworkers, or definitely my prospective employers. There's things that you just don't say at a job interview if you can avoid it.
If you can avoid it, and
if you can avoid it, just because it's not going to be helpful for the process. Now, and there's nuance in there. It's like, oh my God, if they ask about that, or if they find out about that, then I'm not going to get the job, and rightfully so, because I'm not actually qualified or eligible for the job. So I got to hide it. That's one end of the extreme, and the other is, this is just something we don't need to go into. It has nothing to do with me. It might have been something in my past. It's nothing that's currently going on. It's an old story that's left over from college or my young adult days, and it's no longer relevant. So we can save ourselves some time by not dealing with it. Those are two different reasons to not want to address something in the past. And then there are the people who, go in pretending, oh, I'm going to be the greatest employee in the world, and they're not. And I'll give you an example. I was in the printing business, and this was back in the 1990s. And I was working for a consulting company, and we were helping people make the transition from traditional, developing film with chemicals and, exposures and stuff like that into digital. And they had this whole print shop. They were in Baltimore, and they were switching from traditional to digital. And they had a whole bunch of employees, and they wanted to know who was going to be good for which roles. And they wanted me to come in as the consultant. A consultant, by the way, is somebody with an airplane ticket and a briefcase and an opinion, who comes in and you pay a lot of money to tell you stuff you could have figured out for yourself. But anyway, that was my job. And I went in, and the first thing I did is I talked to the senior management, and I said, well, who are the people who you think would be good to slot into these positions? And for most of them, they knew. And there was one employee who they thought could be great, but they thought also might be horrible. And they wanted to know what to do with her. And there was a process that I used, and I called in expert assistants from old colleagues of mine to determine if she's actually qualified or if she's making up a story. And she was absolutely making up a story. She was completely unqualified to do the new job, even though she was enthusiastic about wanting to do it. And when it came right down to it, she knew she wasn't qualified, but she also thought, well, if I'm not part of this wave of the future at this company, then I'm going to be left over as a relic of the past, which may have been true, but it wasn't going to help her or the company, because eventually they would have found out, oh, no, she can't do this. And it wasn't a criticism. She just didn't have the skill set in order to do the new job that would have been foisted upon her. So she was trying to wear a mask and trying to get something. And my job was to see beyond the mask and understand what the situation is going to be like when the mask comes off. Because, oh, by the way, the mask is going to come off. Right? We can wear a mask for a while, but if we're engaged long enough, eventually people are going to see what's behind the mask, if it's hiding something.
You made me think about my first professional transition. I was a teacher in Philadelphia school system doing adult education, and stumbled into a job fair. And I thought, what the heck? And I, like, these people are going to hire me. I never even thought about working in corporate America. However, I had resume in hand, and I was in this line, and, they were talking to me and looking at my resume and asked me if I had ever used a computer. Did I know how to use computers? They were looking for somebody to write courses to teach certain things, computer-based education, which was a really new thing at the time, blah, blah, blah. And I thought to myself, I want this job. I want this shot at this job. I want this. Had no, and I lied.
You said yes, you had experience with computers?
Yes. Okay. And then I told him, and I was a good little Christian at the time.
So you confessed about it later to somebody else.
No, and I was sitting there thinking right while I'm sitting there, you just lied to this person. You don't know how to use computers. And then something said, well, yes, you do. A phone is a computer. And da-da-da-da-da. And then I thought, yeah, I just never used your computer, so I was okay with it.
A phone now a phone is a computer. Back then, the advanced phones had push buttons and the rest of them had dials.
And that was a computer. It was more than a string in a can. So, or yelling across the street. Anyway.
As long as you believed it, then it was a computer.
I believed it.
Okay.
I believed it but I also, now you used the term not qualified. And I actually wondered if I wasn't qualified. And I thought, all this is going on in the first interview. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I am absolutely qualified because have I ever written a computer-based education course? No. But I can teach and write. And if I just learn the buttons on how this thing works, doggone right, I'm qualified. Now that meant staying up for 2 weeks straight. I've taken a thick book home. I did what I had to do to show that I was qualified. Now, was I qualified? Of course. I was qualified to learn what I need. It was like just a few things, Okay, so 2 weeks, I only had 2 hours sleep a night. Reading, try. Did it. Lasted for years, got promotions and all that good stuff. Was that a mask? Was it?
Oh, okay. Great question. Great question, because your answer of yes, I know how to do this, and even stretching through to the yes, I've done this before, was what I would describe generously as aspirational. Mm-hmm. And the difference between being a lie and being an aspirational truth is that as soon as this became a real possibility, I've just had a first interview and they're going to want a second interview, so I better be able to make the yes that I just gave them true before they ask again.
Yes.
So you then set about making the story match, or making the experience match the story that you had already told. So by the time that you got to the second interview, you did have some experience writing computer-based education, even though it was only since the first time you said you'd already done it.
Right.
Okay. That is different than somebody who says, yeah, I know all about crypto. And then they forget about it until somebody comes back and says, so tell me this about crypto. And they go, hamana, because they have no idea what crypto is. They just want it to seem like one of the cool kids.
I'm not sure whether it was a mask or not. I know that it was me, right? This is my attitude, period. I walked out to the car and I said, do you realize what you just did? Yep. I got myself an opportunity and I've got what it takes. I just got to figure out the details. That's it.
Yep.
And I thought that's all it was.
And there's a difference between wearing a mask and hiding something and wearing a mask so that you can portray the persona that you want people to be able to see, so that when they get to know who's behind the mask, they're comfortable. And it is so subjective. Oh my God. Did you lie to the recruiter the first time? Well, technically, yeah. Do you think they knew that you were lying? They'd been through this. They'd seen this rodeo once or twice before. They probably knew, but they also probably saw the fire. It's like, this one has potential because she really wants it. And we've all seen that. We've all seen people who are in the process of phoning it in versus people who are given exactly the same answers, who are passionate. So we know it when we see it, especially if we've been in a scenario before. So were you lying? No. Were you wearing a mask? Yes. Did it provide a good service? Yeah, the company you went to work for and kept you around for years and years and years because you did good work. They hired you because you made it through the interview gauntlet. And by the way, I'm familiar with the company. They didn't make like shoot from the hip hiring decisions. How many interviews did it finally take for you to work for Digital?
2.
Only 2?
That's it.
They must have been in a hurry.
Maybe.
Because I know some people who've gone through back in the good old days, went through 5 or 6 or 7 interviews to land in their position there.
Yeah, I'm not, I do things the same way all the time. I stay in my lane. I know where I'm good and I stay there. And if this is what you want, I'll ace it for you. I can learn to do better. What you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I will, speaking of fessing up, the consulting engagement that I did to find out who the employees were that were going to be good at particular things, the assessment instrument that we used, the test, was actually an IQ test. It wasn't labeled IQ test anywhere, but it's basically a skills assessment that shows how smart someone is. And it's about, it goes from simple things to abstract reasoning to projecting stuff, and is a real good indicator of where somebody's going to fit in. So if you're hiring somebody to work in a warehouse and do the same thing over and over and over again, you don't want them to be too smart because they'll get bored and they'll leave, in which case you have to hire again. On the other hand, if you want a computer programmer, they need to be on the higher end of the scale because otherwise they're just going to get wrapped around the axle and not be able to do the job. So it's not saying smarter is better. It's like, where's the appropriateness for the particular position? So that's what we went in with. And the woman in question talked a really good game, and she had learned to do that because she was actually really low on the scale. And she had made it through everything that she was doing in her life up until then based on bravado and people not being able to see it. And, she was working in the print shop doing the stuff that was really actually appropriate to, to her skill set and her aptitude. And putting her into the other job just would have gotten her fired in a month. So we actually did everybody a big favor and saved a lot of angst by understanding this is where you fit and that is not where you fit, and let's move on ahead accordingly. Switching topics. If they had given you the same test, they would have said, oh, she's a perfect fit for this. And she wants to do it. She's got a lot of experience in education. She's a classroom teacher, with adult education. So she's working with our clientele already. And nobody knows how to do computer-based education because it was brand new.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we'll give her that. We'll give it a try. She's got the aptitude. Let's see what happens. And if anybody said that, and it's, we've hired people. At some point you say, well, let's give it a shot. Looks like this is going to be a good candidate. And every once in a while, it's a home run. It's perfect. Yeah. And every once in a while, it's like, oh my God, what have I done? My brother was a consultant in the finance business, and he got hired to work on a project. And so he needed to staff up the project. And one of the people he hired was his coach from the squash court where he played squash, because he had seen the aptitude that she had. She would be perfect as, a project runner for this. And then he had to get a different squash coach. She was great.
You know what? Let me tell you, this one is a little bit more touchy than the one I told you, right? So,
okay. Wait a second. Let's tease with that. Let's tease with that and take a break, and you can tell us about that when we resume.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Bill Marcioni. You guys understand how excited I get sometimes. Go ahead.
Where we left off, Carol was about to confess about something else where she'd been wearing a mask and was concerned about being found out. Let's hear the story.
We are nuts. Yeah. Okay. So listen, do I look like a pastor now? Don't answer that. I was in the three traditional mainline denominations where you don't show up looking like this at a meeting. Okay, you just don't. And so I was going from corporate to that environment was pretty easy because in corporate we had 3-piece suits and navy blue suits and all that. So I was used to the uniform and I just transitioned to dark suits and the collar. And everybody else was wearing it. And I'm thinking, I don't think this looks good. But, you know, this is required. Why is there so much emphasis put on this? You know, let's get down to the God stuff where it really matters, changing lives, blah, blah, blah. But
religious regalia as a fashion statement.
Yeah. And nobody's interested in my opinion anyway, right? I'm just one of a gajillion of y'all here. So whatever. So I kept thinking, you know what? I am just one of a gajillion. Who cares how I look? So I came to a conference looking like I like the look. I had on. So I won't go through the whole thing, but the thing that got attention was I had on neon green shoes, was cutouts. Nobody does that, right? They wear pumps and whatever. And I just like,
sensible
I wasn't
shoes.
On the, yes. And outfit. And mine was just me, right? And I was not thinking about anything because I'm not on the program. I get to come in, sit down. Who cares? The person at the microphone said, "Oh my God, look at Carol. She has those. You ready? Shut up and go to hell shoes." Like when I say room full of people, I'm not talking 20. No. I'm talking a couple hundred. Okay, so people knew me. Of course, everybody's leaning over looking at my shut up and go to hell shoes. I wasn't wearing a mask that day. I was just trying to be comfortably me.
Yeah, you were wearing shoes, not a mask.
I was not. And the whole outfit was not a collar with a dark suit and all of that. I looked like something else, I guess, to them. You know how Obama wore the tan suit and everybody freaked out? It was like that. I wasn't even as important as he was. It's just like, so my daughter said to me, "Ma, I don't care what you got on. You ain't nothing but a dressed up hippie." And
so helpful. Thanks, Keo.
We laughed about it. She thought she was being disrespectful. She was so apologetic. I cracked up because I didn't know she saw it. She said, "Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, so am I any different? I'm still me, right? Other than the mask. And a mask can be so many different things. I use superficial examples of outward stuff, clothes and all of that. But there's other masks that we wear. And I wonder if you sit down and think about the way I came to that meeting was fully me. I was terribly comfortable and I really felt like I had more to offer being my comfortable self.
Yeah.
When I found out it wasn't received well, I just thought something wrong with y'all.
Yeah.
Just something wrong with y'all.
And I completely agree. It has much less to do with you than it does with them. And it's about reading the room. And the reason that we wear masks, in some cases, it's to hide who we are. And in other cases, it's to make the people who we're engaging with more comfortable.
Yes.
So we're going to show, and that's not where we're lying. That's where we're being selective about the persona that we share. Can you go into a meeting like that dressed like an upstanding spiritual leader in your fill-in-the-blank denomination? Yes, you know how to do that. You've been doing that for years and years and years. You didn't need to. You didn't need to. You knew that you were only showing off a piece of who you were when you did that. So you showed up with the electric green shoes, and it turns out that was a lightning rod. Not for you, but for the other people who were there. So clearly you could handle it, and they couldn't handle it. So it says much less about you than it does about the people who you're engaging with. And that's okay. The story. I do weddings, as you know, and when I'm doing the intake with a couple that's doing a wedding, and they're non-traditional weddings. So it's all about love, and it's all about the connection, and the couple and I work together to create a ceremony that's going to reflect their taste and style and spirituality, which is not going to be the one that the Catholic Church would do, or that the Methodist Church would do, or that the synagogue would do. And I'm not going to, play the imam or the rabbi game. We're basically going to create something for them. And along the way, one of the questions that I have is, what's Reverend Bill going to wear for the ceremony? And I pose that to the couple, and they start thinking. I said, well, I can wear a robe. I got ministerial robes, very nice. I can wear a suit if you prefer that. Or if you're okay with it, I've got a really nice tie-dye tank top and some cutoffs for your June wedding. And uniformly, they laugh and the reason that I do that is because I don't need the mask. I can wear whatever is going to make everybody there comfortable. If they're doing, a highly formal black and white ceremony, then it's going to be me in the robe with a white shirt and maybe a black tie. Mm-hmm. And if they're going to be more casual, then I'm going to be in a suit. And if they don't care, if they're doing this at the beach and they say, oh, board shorts, that'd be perfect. Okay. Because it's not about the costume that I'm wearing. And in that case, when I put on the robe, is that a mask? No, it's a persona. And I look different when I'm wearing the robe than I do when I'm wearing the suit. And still the same me. And by the way, on Sunday morning, they're going to be just as married.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I think I want to get to, when we did all that. It's like, sometimes you have to do that. Yes, I get it. I did it for a whole lot of years. But don't lose yourself in the process, because the last, I would say, I counted, but it's like 4 years, the last denomination I was in. It was just the most horrible experience. Just the most horrible experience. And because it was about the outward appearance, the mask that mattered. Mm-hmm. So everybody, and the person who was in charge made everybody scared. So, because you're scared, if you don't do such and such, you're not going to get such and such an appointment. But I was like, I was older than most. And so I had a sort of like a real I don't care thing starting to take over. And you just have to be careful you don't lose yourself when you're wearing the mask. I think wearing the mask for the right reasons, if that's a fair statement, it's probably something that this could go on forever, but yeah, for the right reasons, not to lose yourself and become the mask. But know that that's what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. And that's a wonderful question to ask. And if there's ever the situation, I'm going to say this for the people who are listening, a situation where you feel like you're being forced into pretending to be somebody who you're not being. The question is, what's the reason that you're being asked to do that? And is it okay to do that for the reason that you're being asked? So, Carol is being asked to toe the line that this particular denomination follows so that she can get along with the denomination. And you did it for a little while, although it was awful. And if you were 35 years total and 4 years in that one, then obviously the fuse burned out really quickly.
It sure did.
And the question is this okay? Can I do this and remain in integrity with myself? And if the answer is yes, then go ahead and do it. put on the fancy robe like I do for the wedding. And if the answer is no, then say, this is not for me. This doesn't fit. And you get to go on and do something different. I tend to not behave any differently when I'm wearing the robe than when I'm not wearing the robe. And interestingly, I have really nice robes that have the doctor bars it's a worsted wool suit with the embroidered velvet doctor bars, because I got a doctorate and all the rest of that stuff. And it's very fancy and it's really heavy. And I prefer to wear it when it's really cold, like outdoor weddings in November, perfect for that particular robe. Summertime, But I have another robe, which is actually a really cheap graduation robe that I got on Amazon. It was like for $18. And the advantage of that one is that it doesn't wrinkle because it's made of completely synthetic materials. This has never seen a natural anything. And I can shove it into a suitcase and bring it to an event and put it on. It looks not bad. And I know the difference. I know when I brought the good robe and when I didn't bring the good robe, but it doesn't change who I am or what I'm bringing to the circumstance. And if I had to do a wedding dressed in the cheapo robe, again, they'd be just as married by the time I got done and feel that same connection, because it's not about the robe. It's not about the mask that I'm wearing. That's simply to get everybody into the room so we can have the deeper engagement about the good that we are all mutually looking for.
You used a really, really important term. You said integrity, the integrity of yourself. I asked myself, if God showed up at this event. Now, of course, I'm not using.
Carol? What are you doing in those green go to hell shoes?
Here's the thing. No, if at any given meeting, over the whole 35 years, whatever, and more importantly, toward the end of that experience, I said, now, if God showed up, would God recognize me? And that gave me pause, really, because the way I showed up to get that corporate job, I didn't dress that way when I was going to school, when I was in the classroom. I knew what I had to put on. I knew the image that I had to project in order to even get their attention, to get to the chair. I knew what I had to do, but it was still me. And so forth. But then you can get into something so deep that you don't even know who you are anymore. And I saw that happening to people. I saw it. Now, it could have been happening to me as I was going through, probably. When I said, this is it. Okay. I was not 25 years old either when I said that. So sometimes it takes a while to have courage enough to be authentic and have integrity, because you're not afraid anymore. But then it's like, who's in charge here? God's in charge. And this is how he made me. I'm just showing up. I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm going to show up clean, and I'm going to wash my face and do the best I can with what I got. But I can't do this mask thing anymore. Because, I'm going to say this. I can see the checkered flag. You can see the checkered flag from any age in your life. It's there. But what does it mean to you? Like, I don't want to live another day not being who I came here to be. I can't be that all the time. I get it. I can't. But I know it. Right. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. It's about our story, because when we put on a mask, or we put on the wardrobe, or when we doll ourselves up, what we're doing is we're presenting a particular version, or we're leading with a particular version of our story. And it's because that's the part that's important now. Did it help that you showed up for your first big girl interview with the in corporate America, dressed like you belonged in corporate America? Yeah, because it took a huge question off the table. Is it possible that she can fit here? They look at you. Yep, you can. You open your mouth and you talk for a little bit. Yep, she's not going to embarrass us going into meetings. Then do some evaluations of the skill set. Do you have the aptitude, the temperament, and the ability to learn, so that we can teach you how to do the job, and you'll be able to actually get it done and understand that there's a big picture amount. There's a whole bunch of ways that we want to be able to establish that we fit, that it's appropriate. And when we put on a persona or a mask or a costume to encourage people to understand that we can fit, we're not lying. We're simply showing an aspect of ourselves. We're giving a version of our story so that it can land. If the version of the story that we're giving isn't true, if we make something up and there's nothing to back it up, that'll come out. And that's kind of how the creative law in the universe works. If we claim something that we know isn't true, eventually the consequences of that show up in our lives. It can sometimes be later in the same interview. Sometimes it can take years and years, but it always comes out.
It does. I think that the one thing I appreciate about New Thought, it takes you to a place where you can be, if you choose, you can be still and really face the world as it is and decide how you want to fit into it. You can decide whether you want to take your authentic self and say, listen, this is how I came here. I have some value to add. I'm going to just travel until I find the sweet spot.
Beautiful.
Or you can play it whatever and leave the planet unhappy and unfulfilled, I think. So which way you want to do it?
Yep.
And
let's take another break. And when we return, we will have a little prayer, a little practical prayer on living in integrity and finding that perfect fit. It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at bethelight.com. That's b-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at bethelight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We have been talking about masks and personas and leading us up to prayer on fit and perfect fit and living in integrity. And I was reminded during the break of a story, something that happened. I was in high school. There used to be a TV show, Dick Clark did it as a game show called The $20,000 Pyramid. And there's 2 contestants, and in the final contest, the one person is looking at the pyramid and they can see what the words are, and they need to get the other person to say the word that they're looking at. And in the last version, they can only say one word to make that happen. And this was an episode I happened to be in the studio audience because I lived in North Jersey, and every once in a while we'd play hooky, and they shot 5 shows in a day, and you get to go sit in the studio audience, and it was a ton of fun. And there's 2 guys in Final Jeopardy, and they made it all the way through, and they're on the last word, and they got a few seconds left, and the word is pediatrician. And the guy looks at the word pediatrician and he says, foot doctor. which of course is a podiatrist. And the other guy says, pediatrician. And he won the $20,000.
With the wrong answer.
Was it the wrong answer? That's where the fit comes in. So was it the right answer? Technically, no, it was not the right answer. However, it was the winning answer. So, and that to me, that's wonderfully instructive, because I can say, am I living in integrity? It's like, in integrity with what? Do the pieces fit together here? Is the mask that I'm showing to the world around me for the purpose of having success and joy and harmony and uplift? Or is it for me getting over on somebody and putting them down to put myself up? Mm-hmm. It's all, it's such, and it's all a personal opinion. So it's really difficult to look at somebody else and judge them of, oh, you did that wrong. You got the wrong answer. Did the guy get the wrong answer? $20,000 says he got the right answer.
Yeah. I see a comment that just popped up from Mary. It says, many times society causes a person to wear a mask. And that's true. And I probably wear one sometimes and maybe not realize it, But I think if you know that you're doing it, you're still in integrity. If you know that you're doing it. Yep. And there may come a time when you can't deal with it anymore. You don't want to. But that's, if you know what you're doing, I hold that in high regard. You made a decision. It's good in this moment.
Yeah.
Go with it. But as long as you always remember who you are.
Yeah. And I have those personal stories. They've got a pulpit. So I'm talking to my congregation every Sunday morning. And I take 15, 20 minutes to tell an uplifting and insightful story. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I could talk about that I don't. And some of it is because it's inappropriate for me to drag my spiritual community into that. And in some cases, it's because it's stuff that I'm going through. And until I get to resolution for myself, there's really no reason to unload it on a group of unsuspecting people. And in some cases, it's because it's going to be really provocative and stir something up that I would rather time so that we can stir that up at a point when we have the bandwidth to address it and let things calm down in a new way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When they're building a bridge, sometimes they have to blow up the ground. It's important to be ready with the rest of the bridge before you get out the explosives. So have a plan.
That's a leadership thing, and that's another side of the street. But that you're making a conscious decision,
right?
But right. I'm going to acquiesce to you.
Okay,
so I'm going to take us into another whole thing.
Yeah, well, then we got another episode that we can do in a week. So let's do a prayer now, a practical prayer on living in integrity, and that is about fit. It is about having the persona that we're presenting, the mask that we're wearing, the costume that we're showing up with, be appropriate for us and for the situation. Yeah, I'm really comfortable wearing sweatpants. And there are some gatherings where wearing sweatpants would change the nature of the gathering and change the nature of the way that I'm involved in a gathering. For example, a black tie event with me wearing sweatpants is just going to be awkward. It's going to feel awkward for me. It's going to feel awkward for other people. So if I show up wearing a tuxedo, it's not because I'm pretending to like wearing a tuxedo. It's because that's what the circumstance is inviting. And as long as I'm okay, that I can know that I am perfect, whole, and complete, whether I'm wearing sweatpants or a tuxedo, that's fine. Then the engagement is fit. Let me engage in this circumstance in a way that fits for me and for everybody involved. And the big question is about our own integrity. So let's go ahead and close our eyes to the specifics of the circumstances and get an idea of what living in integrity is. And that, to me, is whether I'm wearing the sweats or wearing the tuxedo, I'm okay. Am I truly okay? Am I giving up something of myself in order to dress in a particular way? Even if the reason that I'm dressing that way is because of the event that I've been invited to and the expectations of other people. Can I be okay? Take a deep breath and breathe into that feeling of living in integrity. of that understanding of what's okay with me and what's not okay with me, and have the flexibility of doing anything that's in the range of what's okay with me in order to fit in. And understanding that if there is something I'm invited to do that's not okay with me, but I don't pretend, that I don't do it just to get along. Where's that range? What is that truth about me? What is possible for me? What is the highest and best unfolding as me as I engage in each of these situations? With that awareness, we can turn our attention to that infinite creative power, that one divine presence, that one love, that one infinite energy that forms and shares and shapes and unfolds itself as every part of its creation. Everything is that one divine presence. It's God or spirit or nature or the Big Bang or a big happy coincidence. Whatever it is that one divine source sharing itself as its creation, and everything is unfolding from that one and as that one, and a new expression of that one. So this next new experience that each of us is coming into is that one expressing itself. The way that we are expressed in the world is that divine power and presence revealed in a way that is unique to us. So as this next experience presents itself, we are guided, we are informed, we are automatically aware of that which fits and resonates and is okay. To bring integrity and authenticity to our true, authentic selves, and that which is unacceptable. And without needing to have a negative, nasty reaction when it doesn't fit, without any need to force the circumstance to meet some preconceived notion, I invite each of us to be guided by that infinite intelligence that already knows, to inform us as to what is okay for me. Am I living in integrity? Is this a good fit for me for now? Is this something to which I can say yes? And as we come to clarity on that infinite creative power that creates everything creates this newness for and as and through us. Sometimes by unfolding as that goodness coming about, sometimes by leading us in a completely different direction where we're not dragged off of our center. And in any case, it is good and love unfolding, and for this I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for the wonderful way this is happening. I'm grateful for the masks coming off and the truth being revealed, the fit occurring, and the love unfolding. And so with gratitude for all this good, I speak this word and I release it into that creative law. And it is already saying yes. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.